Mount Olympus, Olympic National Park, Washington State, northwest corner of the U.S. A magical wilderness land that's been settled for thousands and thousands of years, maybe a lot more years than we know. Ancient legends say people have always been here. Could those ancient legends be true? I went looking for an unnamed lake where the answer to that question may be found. This is a little bit about that exploration. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about a series of how people got to North America. The general theory until the year 1900 was that humans hadn't been in North America for more than a few thousand years. And then with the understanding of ice ages and ice sheets covering the earth and lower sea levels and land bridges being exposed, it became the theory, and most people take it as fact, that the last ice age lowered sea level 300 feet, and that let a big corridor of land between Russia and Alaska to be exposed, the Bering Land Bridge, and people came along that land bridge. But then the theory was that there was an ice sheet all over Canada and the continental US, and they couldn't get beyond Beringia or parts of Alaska and into the continental US until the ice melted, which is about 12,000 years ago. And there was one theory there's two big ice sheets and a valley melted between them, and people raced down there about 11,000 years ago. And some people say that that the reason for that is that's how people got here, and right after that all the big animals disappeared, the short-faced bears and the mammoths and so on. The thought might have been from hunting just as much as changing climate. So that was the theory 12,000 years ago, because the ice age was at its maximum about 20 to 12,000 years ago. Now we've been in an era of ice ages for over 2 million years. And there have been 20 ice ages. It's about every 100,000 years. There's an ice advance and then an ice retreat. And generally, over those 20 ice ages, for 80,000, 90,000 of those years are colder than today. And then between the ice ages is a interglacial, which tends to be warmer. And we're right in the middle, or we're 10,000 years into the interglacial between the current ice age and the next one, assuming we're going to keep having ice ages. Well, so it means that the land bridge was exposed between Alaska and Siberia for many, many thousands of years. And that land bridge has been exposed in previous ice ages many times. And some animals, like mammoths, got over here from Eurasia and went from here to Eurasia in an earlier ice age. And probably some other animals too. So that was the thesis. And the idea was people came over the land and they couldn't get beyond the ice. Then about 20 years ago, people started doing a field called underwater archaeology, and they basically postulated, well, if the ice ages, the sea level was 300 feet lower, all the people would be living on the shore and all be buried in the water. And they have found some ancient villages buried, in 50 or 100 feet of water. And they've also found good evidence that people in ancient times were seafarers. They could travel out of sight of land. They traveled out of sight of land between Australia and the nearest island 80,000 years ago. There's evidence, as I said before, of people fishing for tuna fish 40,000 years ago, and you have to go offshore to do that, out of sight of land. So, another thesis might be that people could kind of work along the coast, find a refuge here and there, watch the weather. Be hard, but it's possible. They also know, as far as the ice ages here in North America, that there were refuges, refugia. The parts of the Olympic Peninsula west of the Olympic Mountains were never glaciated. Some of the islands up along British Columbia and the Alaskan islands were never glaciated. And people think that's where species survived, and that's where remnants of humans may have lived at some point. So that was the thesis. So I'm an old fisherman and sailor, and so I like boats, and I like the idea of people being able to go to sea years and years ago. And so I've kind of postulated that maybe people could run the coast and maybe people could have come over here well before that 12,000 years. And interestingly enough, there's now evidence that there is evidence of people being here is pretty much documented now for 24,000 years in the Yukon. There's some sites that have been found in North America that have never been accepted because they never accept new sites. There's a huge fight, you know, the people who have the theory are protecting their theory, and you have to have irrefutable, unmistakable evidence to disprove a theory. For example, if you wanted to prove that people have been in North America more than 20,000 years, you'd have to find datable paintings and artifacts and skeletons. I mean, it would, otherwise nobody'd believe you. So you need a find. So that was the big argument, and the big argument about when people could come over here. But it's broadened out. It used to be 12,000 years. Now it's maybe 20. There's a site in California. They found some mastodon bones that looked like they might have been cut for meat, 100,000 years old. There was a site in Alaska with a mammoth bone with a carving on it that disappeared that might have been 200,000 years old. But, you know, that's all wild thinking, right? So who knows? We don't know. We actually don't know very much at all, actually. So I took a liberties with that with my story, Strongheart. And I played around with these theories about the ice ages and about what people could do and so on. And hopefully you'll enjoy. All right, we're standing above Lake Lillian. That's the lake behind me. And behind the lake, you see ridges of mountains, and that's significant. I was trying to go back to a place called the Unnamed Lake, which is well behind those mountains, but going up over the pass, it got too sketchy for me. I got nervous, so I came in here 2 days, and I'm not going out there because I'm not an idiot. Well, I'm close to an idiot, but I'm not a total idiot. Anyway, the point was to get out to the Unnamed Lake, which is central in this trilogy of stories that came to me. The first one's called Strongheart, the second one's called Adrift, and the third one's called Totem. Strongheart was published in 2017 and Adrift in 2018, and I finished Totem, but COVID came, and so it's been delayed, but I think it'll be out soon. And when I started, it was just going to be one book. I wanted to write something about the park, Olympic National Park, where I am now. And I wanted to write something about this ancient legend that almost all native people, first peoples of North America have, which is that they've always been here. They didn't come over on the land bridge 12,000 years ago. They've always been here. In fact, I think some of them would argue that, you know, by arguing that they came over here 12,000 years ago, they're a bit like the most recent group of people, and that can be seen by some as an insult. And I think there's some basis for that. So there's a strong legend that they've always been here, but there's really no evidence of humans in North America more than 20,000 years ago. It's 12,000 years ago it's now about 15. The oldest find of evidence of humans hunting in the Americas actually isn't far from here in Sequim, Washington. Spear point was found in a mastodon bone and dated to 13,800 years old. So even at the height of the ice time, people were living on this peninsula and hunting. So I want to do a story, again, set in the park and playing with this question of well, could that old legend be true? And then how could it be true? And that embarked years of research and analysis and thinking and talking to people. And anyway, the book came out of this. It appeared. I had not much to do with it, actually, I feel. And so I wrote the first book. It's about an ornery 13-year-old girl who fetches up on her grandfather's door, and he doesn't even know he has a granddaughter. And they take her with them on a camping trip into the park to see his grandfather's grave. And along the way, she sees something, and they don't believe her, and they're taking her out in the woods to teach her something about life and grit, and she ends up teaching them. And they have a great adventure. And at the same time, there's a mining company that has a permit to mine in this national park. It turns out that permits that are valid at the time a park's formed can still be used, which I didn't know until I did some research. And this park was formed in 1938. So I had this mining company had a permit to mine in here, and they get crossways with this girl and her grandfather and his two friends, and they have a great adventure. And after the story ends, I wanted to keep going because the story kept talking to me. So I did another one called Adrift, set a few months later, set in the Gulf of Alaska and on this peninsula. And one of the characters in the first book, William, who's a native person, um, he's a sailor. He works in a commercial container vessel going between Alaska and Russia, and they get caught in a terrible storm and have to abandon ship. And then it's, find the lifeboats and who's going to survive and who's looking for the missing crew members. And that was Adrift. And then the third book, Totem, set the following summer back in the park, same mining company, pretty much the same group of people, a few different ones, and they get right down to it. And there's a lot of loose ends or mysteries in the first couple of books that all get resolved. So those are the books. And um, and central in the book, because I found on a map, is this place called this unnamed lake below Windfall Peak. And I wanted to go out there for years. I made several trips trying to get out there. And this trip, I got up here to Lake Lillian in some beautiful, beautiful weather. It's October 1st today, actually. And I got out here, and I was going to take today to go out and try to see that lake. But I went up the trail to the pass, and it was real sketchy, real slippery, really steep. And I'm not 20 anymore, and I can't bound around like a goat. And I get nervous. So I decided that rather than calling a rescue crowd for me somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, I'll bag it, call it good. At least I tried. And I wanted to take a picture of the unnamed lake or even draw it so to put in the books. But the lake exists. It's a critical part of the stories, and it's a important part of the stories. And if you're younger than I and stronger than I and have more of a will, maybe you can go out to the unnamed lake. But I didn't make it. Now I want to get back. So anyway, it's just beautiful out here, and these stories I wrote, I wanted to celebrate that to some degree. I think I have. Uh, and then again, I wanted to really play around with that legend and a bunch of other stuff too. But Strong Heart, Adrift, and Totem are the stories. They're produced by Iron Twine Press. And if you get a yen to read something that's a little different, I encourage you to try it. And if not, but you get a chance someday to really get into this park, you're the winner. It's a beautiful place. So from beautiful Lake Lillian and a 75-degree 1st of October day, I'll be signing off.